Hello, trying to test this because I've got a funny microphone. I was going to do one just to record it straight, but I thought if I'm going to record it straight using this, and I haven't got a copy so I can hear myself, I might be in trouble. So I'm just testing here. I'm still not quite sure how to do it, so I'm just going to talk till I can find where this live video is. I don't even know how to find my own live video stream without messing about. Getting there in the end. We're talking about the nature of God, which ultimately is the most important thing, really. Messing about. Yes, it's working. That's good. Okay. I can start properly now. I talked about karma last time, and it is connected because you have one and you have the other. They are, one is an element of the other thing. So if you look back at the previous one about what is the nature of karma, that we have these plans to become, well, perfect, I suppose. Like psychoanalysis, you clear out all the bugs and you learn to do everything, so you get every tool, and then you don't need to come back. So that takes many lifetimes, and each lifetime we choose to come back and learn certain things. So, of course, putting that into its wider context would require some sort of system, because there's some kind of system here in 3 dimensions as well as the system out there in infinite dimensions. So even if you weren't to accept that there were dimensions beyond here, even though there's plenty of evidence for it, it doesn't matter. And of course, if everyone knew what God was, I wouldn't be giving this talk. So there's the theory and there's the experience. You put it all together and then you find out who God is in theory. Because, hello, Joe. Welcome. I'm doing this for half an hour because I'm going to watch the football. Never mind. That's a bit of real life creeping into my talk, but I suppose that makes it more real, as they say on Big Brother. Never mind. Right, I'll stick to the subject now. So what is the nature of God? Well, the 3 dimensions we are aware of is everything. There's dark matter. There's 99.9% between the space. Thank you. Yeah. Between the space between atoms apparently is nothing. So what we're looking at here is 99.9% nothing and 0.1% or less something. So just imagine that the tiny amount of matter in the universe that we can see is barely anything. Most of it is nothing. And what's in that space, you see? So that's what we're aware of. And what we're not aware of is everything outside that, which could be an infinite set of universes on another frequency to this one. So say we're on 97.3 FM, which is LBC, then you've got 93.5, which is radio 4. But if you've got a radio, of course, you can tune from one to the other, and you know they're all there, but it's very unusual for one to interfere with the other. They did on AM, but not so much on FM. But due to the nature of the frequency, you will get harmonics where they break through to each other. So these are the rare examples when we get glimpses of God coming in from other dimensions, where you start off with everything we know and see and think, oh, that's all there is. And you live for 10, 20, 30 years and you discover that nothing's changed. Everything's ordinary until you see a UFO or an alien or a ghost or something. And as you're on YouTube, there are thousands and thousands of people who say they have. And they can't all be talking rubbish, because I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. Firstly, they corroborate each other. And secondly, that when they used to have the LSD trials in the 60s, before it was illegal, most people who were on it in the same place would see the same thing. So they were removing this veil from their third eye and seeing what was actually there. But the whole point about your radio or TV is that you have to have one channel at the same time, because otherwise it'd be chaotic. You know, A, you don't want a radio that's tuned into all the channels at once, because you'll just get noise. And B, if you've got the access to every channel. So at the moment, human beings have got one channel. It's called 3-dimensional. But in fact, if we believe or accept that there are infinite other channels, we need to be in control of them and switch from this one to the next one. We don't just say, all right, I'm going to allow it all to come in at once, because then you'll get the whole lot and you won't know whether you're coming or going, because you'll be seeing all the different things happening, overlapping each other, and it'll cause chaos. which is why our brains are tuned into this 3-dimension. However, some people are born with the ability to see beyond it, and others like me spend decades working to see what's beyond there. And of course, you get the glimpses of this, that, and the other, but in the end, they all come under one single entity, which would be God. Doesn't matter what word you use for it, but it's basically the sum of everything, all dimensions, infinity. But the difference between infinity and God is that God is an intelligence, and infinity is nothing. It's just the universe going on forever, which is just space with things in it. So the big difference between everything physical and God is that would mean that everything is part of God's consciousness within God, within its consciousness, and we, of course, are made in God's image. So if you look ahead or close your eyes, your body goes, all you are aware of is just being aware of the things that are coming into the awareness. And that is supposed to be the nature of God. So the nature of God is consciousness plus the things you are conscious of. But there's a bonus that God has, which we could have if we knew how, because we've got all the same abilities, and that's creation. If you focus on something and think about it and know what you're doing, you can make things happen. And we've had Indians in particular, because they're the ones that have focused on it the most, who claim they can bring about materializations and out-of-body experiences and everything at will, which we in the West are very backward on. We don't really do it here, and laugh at people who say they will, or if we don't laugh at them, we shoot them. So the Western world isn't very much into these phenomena, but these phenomena are part of our nature. And you don't need to have them, but they're very useful if you do have them. Look at Uri Geller, he's done very well from having them, whether or not you believe it or not. He says they're real, so there you go. So basically, we're dealing with an infinite intelligence which belongs, it begins with a consciousness, and everything is contained within it, and it creates its own material. And it's capable of splitting itself off into different channels, who are having their own experiences. And presumably, we're sitting here in this 3-dimensional world on this frequency, but there are going to be other ones elsewhere, different dimensions, different universes, which are doing exactly the same thing that we are. We're not aware of them, they're not aware of us, except for the rare times when people will slip into one, come out of the other, and then go back into this one. So if you read Robert Munro and Whitley Strieber, they have done it. You could be on a road 1 minute here, then you'll be in another universe, and you'll come back here. And again, with enough effort or luck, you can bring these things about through meditation. And enough people have seen it. So basically, I wouldn't be talking about the nature of God until I had enough personal experience of it, because the trick is that enlightenment, which is God realization, realizing that God is real and you are God, is a personal journey. And it's deliberately created that way, because you can't cheat. You can't say, oh, because David's seen God, he'll show everyone else. You don't need to do all the work. That's not how it works. It's like being a solicitor. You can't share being a solicitor. You can share being an actor. So if your parents are actors, you'll be able to become an actor unless you're absolutely hopeless, because they'll just say, oh, can you give my son a job? Yeah, fine. We'll give him a job. Anyone can do this, that, and the other, and he'll get paid well for it. But if you've got a solicitor who's got a job, you can't give your son a job of being a solicitor, because they've got to pass their own exams. So the nature of God, we all have to do it ourselves. We can't borrow it. It's possible to borrow it when we're ready. So, if everyone's at the right level, then you could have a meeting, and I knew this would happen, but I will leave it. Inevitable, but turn the mobile off. You can't phone off the landline. Can't turn off the landline. So anyway, you can't pass on knowledge of God unless you're in a meeting with a few close disciples, and it's basically not up to us. It's up to God to show himself or herself, itself. So if God decides it, okay, you can show it to a few people, but not many people. It's the exception. So I can't say, all right, well, I've experienced God, I know God is there, so I'll show you, and that's it. Because everyone would know, and nobody would develop themselves. So it's something which can only be explained through your own experience. But the point is, if you know what to look for, you'll find it. So rather than being able to demonstrate it, which the system doesn't normally allow, if you know what to look for, you will end up saying, well, somebody has spent decades looking for God, found X, Y, and Z, I will look for X, Y, and Z, or if I've already seen it, that is my clue that God exists, and I would use that in future. And then, of course, you can tell other people, and the more people are looking for it, we will ascend as a frequency because we get closer and closer to it until we become enlightened. And the more people that become enlightened, the more advanced society is, and the more we're allowed to do and create and see. Therefore, when more people become enlightened, they will start seeing these entities and be able to dial up different dimensions and see through walls and everything, because, of course, that wall is only solid in the fact that we don't want to fall through the floor or the wall, so that it's made solid. But if we can see that all those vibrations that are holding it together, the forces of molecules that are holding those together, are actually light. You know, light is a wave and a particle. So you've got the waves of light there, and you can see through those waves of light, which is possible. You'll see that you can see right through the wall, because what you're doing is you're seeing a magnified version of the molecules. You're seeing the frequency and seeing that, in fact, it looks solid, but it's waving around the whole time. It's actually moving, because all matter moves and vibrates, and you'll be able to see that. That's look up higher balance seeing energy in the air, and it does work. So if you do that, then you'll know at least we can see more. So we've got these spectrums of 5 senses plus the 6th sense, which is knowing, or the Akashic records, which is tuning into everything, the universe, which is God's library. Everything that's happened and is happening is all in there. So if you become clairvoyant and you tune in names, places, people, if you go on my Periscope thing, which is all going soon, but the old ones won't be going, can't make new ones. I was popping out names. I was doing psychic readings, and people were asking me to name people. I think I did about 6 in a row. So this isn't unusual. All we're doing is turning into televisions, because I can see people's family, their cars, their houses, remote view, because we're designed to do it. That's simple stuff. These are clues that there's an awful lot more going on. So our spectrum of vision and sound and everything can extend way beyond what we're given, which is why you can see auras and energy in the air, even if you can't do it very often. Once you've seen it, you know it's there, and you can see it. Whether you can do it all the time or not is another story. But we've got to look at the evidence. I said the other big part of evidence is the synchronicity and the guidance. So the synchronicity, Bader-Meinhof effect, hear a word or phrase you've never heard before and you'll hear it again within 24 hours, happens all the time. Or if you hear a particular word or phrase on the radio and you're reading it at the same time, and once you see that happening, it'll keep happening, and it'll be a regular occurrence. You won't be surprised because you expect it to happen. And the guidance, where you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get from there to there, to be in the right place to either avoid a car accident or to meet somebody or find something that was dropped up. Bending over for the pussycat, he's sitting here as he always does, and I'm on the computer. So you'll find these things that are guided, where you've been told you need something, you can't do it on your own, so you'll be on the road and the road will be blocked, you'll have to turn left, and then as you turn left you see something on the right on a road you'd never normally go down, and that's what you need, and you've been forced off your plan to get what you need because you can't see it. The horizon is over there, you can't see beyond the horizon, so the guidance takes you, lifts you up above there so you can see further. And that's happened so many times. Again, you've got to look for it, and when you look for it and you find it, you'll know it's there. And of course, once you tell your friends, they will start looking for it, and then they'll ring you up and say, you'll never guess what I saw today. My mother's a complete skeptic, but it happens to her all the time. Of course, because she doesn't believe in God and all this other stuff and these dimensions, it mystifies her. But she can't deny the fact it happens. She's done telepathy and other things because these are happening, just like UFOs. You don't have to believe in something if it's there. In fact, it's like the lottery, that you only win it once in a million goes. Means that most people either don't recognize it or notice it, or they don't believe it's there because they've only seen it once or twice. It's just as real whether you've seen it once or if it's happening every day. Once you know something's real, you know it's real. That's it, finished. So let me work through all the list. Conversations with God has helped me a lot as well, of course, because that explains the nature of God very clearly. It's very direct. Yes, I think I've pretty much gone through everything here, because that's the description. So basically, all I'm saying is we've got the jigsaw. I put together this jigsaw of all these pieces. God's there, God's there. We can't see the whole picture yet. Can you see what it is yet? Nearly. But the enlightenment comes when you put enough pieces. I don't think you need all of them. I think you just need enough pieces in that jigsaw to say, well, there's a picture of what God is. Oh, yeah, I can see it now. I can hold it now. I know what it is. And you won't be doubting anymore. And of course, it's a treasure hunt, because it's one of those things that we're put on the earth. We're given a clue, but it's up to us whether we bother to spend our lives looking for the treasure. And as I said, there's only two things in my life that are important long term, because firstly is that we die, and that would be a waste of all our knowledge and all our information and everything else, because why spend 80 years or so learning everything if it's gone? People won't be able to ask your advice that you spent 80 years learning after you're dead. And it's a waste of consciousness. It's a waste of experience and material. It's like building a lovely house, and then after 80 years you destroy it and demolish it and it's gone. What's the point? And the other thing is, of course, that be able to contact the other dimensions while we're alive, because firstly, if you are aware of that while you're alive, you say, well, obviously I'm not really going to die, the body will go, but I'll still be here. The body falls away and I'm exactly where I was before, because I'm the consciousness that's being carried by the body. And the second thing is that you realize you're not alone, because if you're in a higher dimension, obviously there are going to be entities that have got their equipment, whether it's physical or technical equipment, to see what we're doing, even though we can't see what they're doing. Otherwise, how can we be guided? How can things disappear in the house? How can I have things in my kitchen that have been on the shelf 1 minute, I've turned around, I come back and they're gone? They have to come from somewhere and go somewhere. And another thing, things disappearing and reappearing in a room where there's no one else. It's gone, and then when it comes back in the same place or somewhere else and nobody else was there, you start to realize something is going on. And it can't really be much else. So there is definitely an awful lot more going on than we realize. And there is no one route to find out the rest of it. I've given you all the clues that I know of where to find it and what to find, but meditation is the key, because when you meditate, you're focusing on the God that's within you. And, by pure chance, nobody's experiences is the same. You'll get different experiences while you are meditating, and all you need is one experience again to know that it's there. That's your partial enlightenment, the quick one. And then once you've experienced that, the next stage is to carry on so it's permanent. You'll never forget it. You'll always know it, but then you carry on to learn that is your true nature, and that's the nature of your existence. And when you're enlightened, you're always aware of God. You're not alone. You don't necessarily get the powers with it, because if you haven't been taught to do them, just by becoming enlightened, you don't automatically get all these special powers. That's something you have to learn. That's what they teach in the Far East. Falun Gong, anything like that will teach you all those powers. But if you're enlightened, basically you will have the key to the door already. So presumably you will be able to learn these things very easily, because you'll already be tuned in at that frequency, and you'll get the guidance from all the other enlightened spirits who have got this conscious connection and the Akashic record. You'll be able to tune in and work out what to do, because it's all within us already. The lessons are there to speed up the process, but they're not things that you are learning from the first time. They're things that you are remembering, because we're already born with these natural abilities, but we don't realize we've got them, because they've all disappeared in the last few hundred years, because people don't use them. They don't need them, but it's very useful if you do have them. So I suppose if we were to do an experiment and get 100 or 1,000 people to do what they say in conversations with God, and say, all right, I'm going to have 5 or 10 minutes where I'll close my eyes and meditate and say, all right, God, please can you give me a message or ask a specific question? And the thing is that the meditation is to block out the outside world, the telephone, radio, television, cats, everything else. They're very nice when you are using them, but when you meditate, you want to be at peace, so that the quiet voices inside are loud enough to be heard. And then if you're lucky, they'll start getting louder anyway, because it frighten you otherwise. You've got a big voice of God and you're, yes, I'm here. What? Shit yourself. So you do really need some sort of gentle introduction to it, which will come in its own way. So, if everybody who saw this said, right, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes and ask God a question, I'd love to see the responses and see what you would say, because it's the same as putting a question to bed that you don't know the answer to. You wake up and you've got the answer. Of course, you didn't get the answer yourself because you were asleep. So somebody had to give it to you. Who gave it to you? Good question. So really, little bits of evidence are pieces of the jigsaw. You put the pieces together. There's lots of it there. And when you see it, it starts coming into picture. And you say, oh, well, that's what the face looks like. I recognise that face. I know who it is. You're winning. You've got what you need. So, as I say, there isn't a single way of doing it. There are meditations, clues, methods, etc. There's no single way. You've got to all do it your own way and see what happens. But I'll tell you what, it's the most useful and valuable method, because when everything else is gone, if you lose your money or your house, like is happening to me here, you need to be anchored in something, because it's all very well if you think the three-dimensional world is everything, but of course it's temporary. Buddha says you can't anchor yourself in something that's temporary, because it blows away and the ship just floats away, because you're anchoring in something which isn't permanent, but can disappear at any time. And I can prove that very easily. So if you're anchored in God and enlightenment, of course you are then in a position where you are completely solid, and you say, okay, well, this physical stuff comes and goes, but I know that everything else is permanent, and you can draw on your powers to try and control things and say, all right, I'd like a bit of order around this chaos. You might be able to order it through your own powers. So, it might have practical uses, and you're not cheating, because all you're doing is controlling things, just like, if you're controlling the weather and say, right, there's a storm here, we've had enough of the storm, I'm going to stop it before tornado blows away my house. So you're just teaching nature to be a little less cruel to you without hurting anybody else. You never use it to interfere with other people's will. But if you're trying to build something, you're just building it more efficiently. That's all. So if you've got a flood in the garden or a swamp, you're draining the swamp, you're not hurting anyone. You're just doing it more efficiently and more quickly if you're using your extra powers to create, rather than having to do it with a spade and an excavator. So, you're not cheating if you get these powers, because they are given to you to use them. So ultimately, everything is flexible. Everything is possible to be altered and regenerate. Just because a lizard generates its leg, you think, oh, well, it's only a lizard that can generate it. Well, all skeletons are very similar. So if a lizard can generate another leg, guess what? Every skeleton in the universe can generate another leg, because if they can do it, they do. The fact that we don't means we've lost that ability. But I guarantee if you get the genes or whatever it is that will get your body regenerating limbs again, we'll start regenerating limbs, and people grow back hands and fingers that have been cut off and everything. So you've got to think in terms, A, everything's possible, and B, everything probably has happened before, we're just not aware of it. And that opens your mind, and an open mind takes away the blockages, and you'll see something which is always there. Take away the clouds, the sun's always there, and you'll, daytime anyway, and you'll see the clouds. Clouds disappear, you'll see what's behind the clouds. And the clouds are obscuring something which is always there, but the clouds are not permanent, and they're not always blocking it. There are actually gaps in these clouds, because we're always seeing little bits of light, little bits of the sun in between what you think is nothing. So the nothing is, everything you're seeing here is real, nothing else is real, which I've seen enough in my life that there's plenty more. We see a tiny fraction of reality, and the total of that is God. And the total of that is conscious as well. So it's not just there are other dimensions, we can travel through wormholes and see through walls and everything else, but it's all dead atoms and mineral, not vegetable or animal. No, it's all alive. It's all part of one aware system, a collection of everything. And when we separate our consciousness from our body while we're in the body, so yes, we've got a body, but that's not the limit. We extend beyond there. Close your eyes, where do you finish? You don't know, because it just goes on. And that's the actual reality of it. You don't know where you finish. Look away from your body, where do you end? Your field of vision and awareness just goes way out there. So you can prove for yourself you exist beyond your physical boundaries. And then when you start practicing, you'll be able to float above your body, see what's below it, float through the ceiling, see what your neighbours are doing. I'll tell you what, all the people who have done this have come back with accurate information. And some of them occasionally can even do it with their physical body and hop from here to there, 100 miles away, land in somebody else's garden. I've heard stories of that. I'll give you one example before I go, because, as I said, I'm going to watch the football. But I've only got a list of points, and I've made a list of points, but I'll just give you this last story. There was a Japanese midwife who had gone home from the hospital. She was probably off for a couple of days because she lived about 2 hours away in the mountains. Anyway, they had a really difficult birth. This was 10 o'clock at night. They rang up the Japanese midwife and say, "We need you. We've got a complicated birth. You're the best person to do it. How long can you take to get here?" He says, "Oh, wow, it'd take 2.5 hours. Sorry, I can't help it." Do a accent, do a voice, do a place, have to do the accent. 2.5 hours. Well, it's better than nothing. We can just about hold on and get here as quickly as you can. That's fine. Anyway, the woman got in her car, middle of the night, cold, snow, all the usual stuff you get in the mountains in the winter. She drove halfway there, and she found herself just around the corner from the hospital, and she got there in half an hour. Now, the point is that she was urgent to get there. Time and space dilated for her, allowed her to go from A to B. It's called a time slip. She cut through the loop and beat the time because she arrived there half an hour later, and all the team said, "How the hell did you get here so quickly?" Because they phoned her on a landline, not on a mobile phone. They knew she was at home. She says, "I don't know, I just get here." Sorry, I won't do any more accents. Livens things up. So she got there in half an hour, and the baby was all right because she got there well in time and sorted everything out. Multiple witnesses. If you've got multiple witnesses and no way of cheating, if you ask David Copperfield or David Blaine, how did they do it? They say, "Gee, man, I don't know. I'm a magician. I don't really do these things." So you see, some things can be cheated. You can cheat many tricks, but you can't cheat getting 2.5 hours from the mountains in Japan to the city, to the hospital in half an hour without some help from somewhere and without the dimensions and time being an illusion that are just held together for our convenience. But sometimes they're not convenient, because if you need to get 2.5 hours in half an hour and those angels, God, whatever it is watching you, they'll say, "Right, we need to help them. They're in trouble. We mustn't let them be limited by their fixed solid dimensions." So we're just going to unlock the dimensions for a minute, like a little doorway on a video game. You get these doorways where you can go in Pac-Man. You can hop underneath and go from one to another if you're being chased. I think you've got special three goes extra lives. So it's like an extra life. So you're allowed to go down and come up somewhere else, and snakes and ladders, and go to a different place completely without going through time to do so. And just to prove it, quantum physics does it all the time. Everything in quantum physics proves these things, that we are definitely not living in 3 dimensions, because you've got twinned particles, one blood cell here, one blood cell in Antarctica. They will heat up the blood cell here, and the blood cell in Antarctica will react, because they come from the same person and they are on the harmonic resonance. You can do that anywhere in the universe. They will react, and they will react instantly. There won't be a delay. So, the speed of light might take a second to get from here to Antarctica, but they do it simultaneously, because the twin particles, firstly, are connected without time and space. And secondly, they're not governed by the speed of light, because twin particles always react simultaneously anywhere in the world. Secondly is bilocation, where you go from A to B without going through the space. So you go there, and then you're there, without going in between. They can do that now with larger and larger particles. So science always catches up, but believe me, you don't need machinery and science to do these things. We are designed to do it. All we have to do is to practice and to learn how. We'll just believe it's possible, and you'll get the brakes off. You'll start learning to do these things. And I think that if God is watching us and says, "All right, we're making the effort," they'll say, "Right, you're making the time and effort to do this. We'll help you." Whether I've been helped or not, God only knows. But you know, part of my mission is to tell other people. One of my jobs is to share what I've learned. As I say, you don't start describing the nature of God until you've got plenty of evidence. Otherwise, you will not do a very good advert for it, will you? You've got to come out and say, well, I've been looking and looking and looking. This is what I've found. It's not possible for me to just pick it up and give it to you. And I explained why, but it is possible for me to show you where to look. You know, give you a map. Look here, look for this, look for that, and you'll find it. Because everybody's going to find it at a different speed, at a different level. And if we get any feedback here, when I have time and the means, I might do an official experiment, send out 100 messages to people. Please can you meditate on God for 10 minutes and tell me what happens? That should be easy enough. We'll just send out a thing and see how many people come to me. I think I'll do that and then collate the results. It should be interesting. It doesn't have to be scientific because, you know, I think you can weed out the idiots who will send things telling you about, oh yes, I saw the unicorns and Jesus and everything else. You know, you can throw those in the bin, but all the ones which are not only seeming genuine and honest, but similar to each other, you're going to get quite a few similar responses because, of course, if you're looking for one thing, you're not going to find anything else. You'll always find the same thing. So you'll come back with answers. Yes, I know what's there because I've been there. So you're not going to go somewhere and find something that isn't there. You'll find what's there. Corroboration. So hopefully I've set everyone up for it. And there is plenty of evidence, including solid quantum physics, which we're made up from. So if you meditate into the quantum field and allow it to become part of your consciousness, you will be more aligned with it and then able to become aware of what is just simply the little bricks making up the atoms. Because it's subatomic particles, but all the atoms are made of quantum particles. So if it's happening at the quantum level, it has to happen everywhere, which is how they can use all these bilocation and twin particles, because they're not quantum, they're on this molecular level. So they're already proving it can be done using machinery. I'm saying you could do it just using consciousness, because the consciousness is you. Everything else is just temporary and comes and goes and doesn't affect the consciousness. And that's the nature of God, that you build and you create, but you are never hurt really, because, you know, if this body was just a drop on the floor, I would still be here. That's the theory. And I would carry on. And then, of course, if you're not physical, it's a lot easier to tweak things around, because you're not dealing with heavy matter. You're just dealing with the energy, which is a lot easier to manipulate. But you use your mind to focus and you consolidate, firstly, the nothing, the dark matter, into atomic matter, and then coalesce the atomic matter into molecules and then objects. So you're just building from, like a 3D printer, building from the energy upwards. So that's how it works. That's how God would do it. And that's how we would do it, by creating things using the observer principle of quantum physics, which again is proven by the double slit experiment. 50-50 left and right should be. You start watching it, they start biasing to one side. Then you stop watching it and it measures, and they're going 50-50 again. So our observation and our consciousness is the element that brings everything, A, to life as a viewer, and B, so you're not just a TV, you're an internet. You go from being the TV watching things happening to the internet creating the content and changing the content, playing a video game. So your consciousness ends up being shared with the TV program that you're watching, so you can interact with it. So you're not just changing things in your own room and your own telephone call, but you're actually saying, let's see what I can make here. So that's an ambitious thing, but I'll tell you what, if you do that, you wouldn't question God, would you? Or if you saw somebody do it, you wouldn't question God. And we're going for this fifth dimensional ascension, where we all become aware of reality and getting rid of the illusions and seeing through them all. And then when everyone has done that, with enough people, only 20 or 30% is required, we will then shift to a dimension where all this becomes ordinary, like they call heaven. No dirt, no diseases, no filth. Things don't rot with time, don't wear out. They are just there and they stay there. And we can read other people's thoughts without using a phone, and see round corners, and, you know, do all these things normally, where we don't actually say, oh my God, that's incredible. I didn't think that was possible. So this is where we are heading to. We're not just staying put as we are for the rest of the time. Human beings won't be like this indefinitely, where we're just looking for something and a few people find it. Because believe me, history says that we used to know all of this already. We forgot it and we lost it, and we're going to get it back again. When we get it back again, all the people that are born in the bodies now will come back with it, and they'll come back and they'll say, all right, well, we're not going to lose it now because we lost it before. We were here when mankind ascended, and we have now got our heaven on earth where we're living in solid matter, but we're in 5 dimensions rather than 3. Don't ask me what the other 2 are because I haven't seen them, but it's not 4 dimensions, it's 5, because we've got the 4th one now. They're controlling us and blocking us from seeing God because they don't want us to be sharing power with them. They're the evil ones, but they're also our teachers, as I said in the karma thing. The evil ones are there to give us someone to fight against, because you always feel more satisfied if you've won a battle to get from A to B rather than just been put there. Oh, big deal, you take it for granted. If you've had to fight an army of Satan to win, which is what Jesus and Buddha did before they became enlightened, you feel like it's an achievement, and anyone else who does it has gone through the same as you, and you respect them, you respect yourself. So we have to have a little bit of a struggle to succeed, but as Buddha says, we shouldn't suffer, because when you're learning and when you're being taught, the first level of enlightenment is to experience and learn without having to suffer. You've virtually cracked it then, because you won't get any stress in your life. But then the next thing is to become directly aware of God, and then of course you're enlightened. You don't stop, then you become an enlightened being who is learning what to do as an enlightened being. So it's not A to Z process where you get to Z and there's nowhere further. You just get to the next alphabet, which is A1 to Z1, which is working as a God enlightened aware human being, working as God, ideally eventually in the 5th dimensional world. So this is something to think about, and no doubt some of you will have experienced some of these things before, and if you haven't, it might inspire you. If you inspire one person, you're winning. So if I've inspired one person watching this, I'm winning, because it's very difficult to teach people that don't come and ask for it. You know, if you're a teacher and people come to you, you're doing your job. But if you've got people who don't even know they want teaching, or they're just curious about it, they come and watch something, you don't know who they are, they learn what they want from you, it's a miracle, because you have brought them to the light. And you never expect it, you never assume any teaching is going to bring anyone over to the light that hasn't already come to ask for it. Because you can't just do what the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Hare Krishnas do and tap people on the shoulder. Have you heard the good news? Because you know what happens there. That won't work. That's Buddhism. Buddhism says you are the teacher. The right pupils will come to you when they need you. And of course, if you just do lectures, whether it's in a lecture hall or on video, everyone who wants to watch it has come to you. So you're just doing it the other way around. You're saying, right, here I am. If you need anything, come here and you find it. And then if you find it, it's a bonus, because the guidance has actually guided you to where you want to go, hasn't it? Cat's listening. He knows everything. Cats know far more than we do. They're very clever. Okay, so I think that is it. So I gave up the football to do this. This is more important. I'll turn it on now, but this is something which needed to be done. Took the priority. I'll do the other one next. So anyway, this time, leave the comments in the box. I'm going to do this experiment on one of my websites or 2 of my websites and see what happens. It's a very good idea. Thank you and goodbye.